Welcome to the Dog Trainers Podcast,
a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Hey everybody, welcome back and thank you so much for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast. Mariano Alvarez here with Brent Labrada, and this is Season 3, Episode 2. Still super excited to be with you guys, and this is a CO title episode. That means clients and owners, but with that being said, dog trainer friends, be sure to give these episodes a listen as well, because lots of times dog owners have questions that we've already answered, and it might save you a few minutes to just send them over to the Dog Trainers Podcast, and we'll give them a good explanation for you. That being said, we're happy to see you guys back again. Thanks again so much for listening. We love you. We've missed you, and with that, over to you, Brent.
Yes, what's up, everybody? This is Brent. Also, for dog trainers, if you guys are listening to this, sometimes it's just helpful to listen to how other dog trainers might explain something that you might do every day. They might come from a different angle. They might mention things that you weren't thinking of at the time that can be very, very useful in helping explain things to clients. So yeah, please take a listen to this episode and share it with clients and maybe other dog trainer friends. Today's episode, jumping straight into it, is we are going to be talking about the concepts of board and train, right? So if you're a dog owner and you're looking for a board and train and you don't know how to tell the difference between a good one or a bad one, and maybe you don't know what you're looking for, this episode's going to help you figure that out and narrow that down, okay? So let's kind of just jump in what a board and train or in-kennel program is. Pretty much a board and train program is exactly what it sounds like. It's when a dog is dropped off to live either at a facility or at the home of a trainer, and that trainer's job is to teach the dog fundamental skills and recondition certain processes, and then hand the dog back over to the owner and hopefully teach that family. Now, there are going to be three basic reasons why the average dog owner would need a board and train program. Okay, I'm not saying it's the only way to train dogs, but why someone might consider it or why they might need it. Number one, I need my dog to be better faster, right? Doesn't necessarily mean there's any behavioral problems. I just need a dog to get better faster. Maybe it's a puppy growing up and they just want to make sure they stay on top of each developmental stage. Maybe it's just a young, out-of-control teenager that, he's a good boy, but is a little rough around the edges and just needs a little bit of shaping, right? So better, faster. It's a little bit more like a summer camp platform where you kind of, you take your kids to a summer camp where they have a really concentrated focus on skills, right? Could be like music camp or, arts camp, dance camp. And in this case, it's obedience and training camp, right? The second reason you might send a dog to a board and train program is because you yourself have no time to teach them. Right? I kind of relate to this, where, when we were kids, our parents didn't really have time to homeschool us and teach us everything we were supposed to know. So what they did is they outsourced us to schools. And our teachers' jobs were to teach us these concepts and fundamentals. And then our parents' job when we got home was to raise us, right? And so the not having enough time is more like a school or a boarding school model, right? And then the third reason that you'd want to drop your dog off at a board and train program is if the dog is in need of environmental change. And so this means that the environment is actually contributing to the negative behaviors that the dog might be going through, right? So we treat this a little bit more like a rehab. So, if your dog is extremely protective and defensive and aggressive in your neighborhood or your home, sometimes that factor makes it really, really hard to teach the dog new processes. So sometimes we have to take the dog out of that environment, teach them new processes and concepts, and then we can transplant that back into the environment and try to counter condition a lot of the triggers in that environment. So these would be the three main reasons that you would have a board and train program. Anything you want to add, Mariano?
No, I think that's worded perfectly, and I think that this really well ties into kind of our first point about board and train programs and how to decide one for yourself. Is most dog trainers that you come across, they have several programs. They're different lengths of time. They may be titled different things. Sometimes they're even different like price points, like per week type thing. And I know that a lot of people's first confusion is like, well, what program would be best for my dog, right? Now, as a general disclaimer, I hope this goes without saying, you guys should always meet with this trainer in the form of an evaluation or a consultation. Most all trainers do that. And that'll give them opportunity to meet your dog, meet you, really get a sense of the individual goals or issues that you're struggling with, And then they will best be able to tell you, right? So what I'm saying right now is just kind of generic advice, okay? Now, in general, puppies or very simple happy-go-lucky dogs that simply need some training, right? Better, faster. These programs tend to be on the shorter end of things, like 2 weeks. A lot of dog trainers do 2-week programs these days. 3, etc., something like that. Then we talk about our teenager stuff, right? Like you brought up. Great dog, a little rough around the edges. And those programs tend to range from, would you say, 3 to 5 weeks, something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. They have potential to be longer because
right,
they're
potential
older,
to be longer, right?
And
but,
they might be a
average.
little bit out of control, right?
100%, right? And if you guys are wondering, like straight off the bat, why does the dog being a little bit older make the program a little bit longer? Because I know that there's that fear out there of like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but that's not true. Dogs learn until the day they die, just like any living being does. So part of the reason that it may take a little bit longer is very simple, and you guys all know it, like as humans. The more you practice something, the more habituated it becomes. The better ingrained the habit is, the more difficult it can be to replace with new habits, right? So that's a huge chunk of the reason right there. That's why dogs that are a little bit older sometimes get kind of funneled into larger programs. I myself, on my website, it even says, like, if your dog's over X many months, we're probably looking at the next program up, not the puppy program.
Yeah.
Now, the longest programs usually either come in the form of advanced obedience, like off-leash training and so on, or in the form of behavioral modification for more severe dogs. And the reasons for these are super simple. I'm going to focus more on rehab because I notice, as much as I love doing off-leash stuff, almost no one needs that. Like needs that, right? It's fun when you get to do it. But most of the time, if somebody's willing to spend all this money on a long
Or most
training
people don't go to you to be like, I want my dog off leash trained.
right.
They,
Well, and
they want to
and
fix
I'll be-
aggression instead.
Right, and I'll keep it 100% real with you guys because this is for owners. Most of the time, people come to me saying that. I'm like, I don't think that that's what you really want. I think in your mind it sounds super cool, but you know what? Let's go here, and you tell me once we get there if you want to go further, and they usually don't. I try to save people a buck, and so on, right? So let's focus on the rehab side of things. Those programs tend to be longer for several reasons. Part of it is safety. Part of it is time for this dog to decompress in this new environment. Part of it is once the dog is up and running with training, they've kind of gotten used to the trainers and the situation and so on, they still, again, we're talking habits that have been formed. We're talking thought process that have been played out over the course of maybe years. And building new habits in a dog specifically that's resistant to building habits, it takes a while. And something I want you guys to be weary of is programs that claim that they can do this process in really truncated amounts of time.
Yeah.
Like I see programs out there that are like 2 weeks, any dog, any issue, guaranteed, boom, right? No. I don't want to be mean. I'm not really one to talk smack, but no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
Something
that would be a
I've
really
learned-
big red flag for me.
100%, a huge red flag, which we'll talk about later, right? So I won't put too fine a point on it, but just in general, if your dog has more severe issue or is a little bit older, etc., your programs are going to be looking on the longer scale of things, and that, in a nutshell, is how programs are typically listed out from short to medium to long.
Right. Yeah, one thing I also want to add, too, is it's important for you as dog owners to know what is possible in the sense of what should I expect from dog training, right? So if I'm paying someone for 6 weeks of training and all the dog knows how to do is sit and lay down for cookies, with the cookies present, you need to know what that end mission of dog training is does my dog have verbal recognition of concepts? Will my dog be able to listen around distractions? Will my dog be socialized and exposed to the outside world? These are things that are really, really important, and they also help contribute to the length of the program, right? So if I'm a type of trainer that does take my dog out on field trips and socialize them with new environments and takes them out of the training center or training area, that stuff all takes time because, and it's going to be necessary if that's what your dog's problems are or weak areas are, right? So anyways, just wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, 100%. And when we talk about the different types of programs and the different lengths of programs, one thing that you really have to highlight as an owner who's listening to this, right, and who's wondering, why does it take weeks? I taught my dog how to sit in 5 minutes. You're not wrong. You need to consider an extra piece, okay? And the piece is, how long does it take to learn a concept? Sure, that's fast. Versus how long does it take to be really good at it, right? And one way that I like to think about this is I like to think about learning new skills as how accessible they are. And by accessible, I mean I can learn something in 5-10 minutes, right? But how many times would I have to practice this until it's readily available to me, like in the moment that I need it, right? A super simple, quick example would be like, I ride motorcycles. Sometimes in motorcycle, shit happens fast. You get cut off by a car or something. Everybody knows where the brake is. And if you don't, it'll take someone 2 seconds to go, look, right there, that's the brake. But it takes you a lot of practice to feel the stress of like a car coming to you and be able to hit that brake quickly, right? So it's a different thing, right? Learning is one part of it, but the sheer conditioning, that's a lot of why these programs take weeks and weeks instead of like days or a few hours.
Yeah, it's kind of like you did the written driving test, and then you did the driving test. And how long did it take for you to drive before you stopped freaking out and being worried about getting on the freeway? It took a while.
Right, even after the driving test, right? Like even after that, it still takes you a minute to feel comfortable as a driver. 100%, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, so I mean the basic point is hopefully the longer the program, the more advanced the training. That's how this should be. I'm not saying there aren't con artists out there and people that would take advantage of, long periods of time and give you a very, very low tier of training, right? That happens all the time. We hear about them. But I want you guys to ask those questions as dog owners. What can I expect at the end of this program? What will my dog be able to do? Explain to me in a practical use what I can and should expect, and I can hold the team accountable for, given the dog that I have, of course, right? Like certain dogs you won't be able to get certain places, right? So anyways, so that's the length of program. Make sure you ask those questions. A couple things I want to talk about are a couple common red flags that happen in the board and train world, right? One, I think Mariano just mentioned, it's guarantees for everything. Like, we guarantee we're going to fix this. And so, dog trainers who say that they specialize in everything, I'm not saying it's not possible, and I'm not saying there isn't a lot of overlap in dog training where sometimes if I fix this obedience, sometimes this area gets better. But for a dog trainer to say they can train everything all the time, especially the more severe stuff, the separation anxiety, the behavior modification, the aggression, like the lifestyle training, like they say that they can train all of that stuff, just ask more questions. Ask more questions. Do they have special other trainers who specialize in things, or is there one person claiming to specialize in all of it? Just be a little weary when you're dealing with stuff like that. And then They also the ones who guarantee that they can fix all those problems within a very arbitrary or short amount of time.
Well, and I'll give you one more question. If the amount of time doesn't change, like 2 week any issue, the question I would ask, what makes this 2 week program different from a puppy 2 week program? What are you going to do with my dog that's different? Because owners out there, if you're seriously considering a board and train program, that means hopefully you're reading reviews and checking out your surroundings. And I'm sure you'll run into things that sound exactly like this. I sent my dog in for behavior modification, and the trainer did a good job with sit and with place. Like, my dog is better, but they're still reactive. And that's not slamming the trainer. I'm sure that they're great with what they did, which was obedience from what it sounds like. But just make sure that you're focusing on things that address the issue. And in a lot of ways, obedience can help, for sure, right? I'm not saying that they don't. But there's a simple kind of delineation to an extent, right, where obedience and a lot of behavior modification stuff and conditioning and socializing, they dovetail into each other at a point, but they are different at times, right? And so you have to make sure that you ask the questions of, like, what are we going to be doing with my dog beyond just, like, teaching commands that are going to help them feel more comfortable, less pressurized, etc. in these situations?
Yes, 100%. Another red flag I like to talk about. I'm very weary of dog trainers who say, I don't do blank. And they insert, I don't do corrections, or I don't use food, or I don't use praise, or I don't, people who say, I don't do anything or certain specific things, and mind you, only because that just tells us that there's a limited toolbox sometimes, right? So Not saying certain types of trainers can't be effective and then they can't get certain results, but I would really ask just why. Why don't you use treats? Why don't you use correction? Right?
Sorry, I almost would contradict that a little bit and
Sure.
say I wouldn't even necessarily ask why, because they're going to give you a reason.
Sure.
Like they have their pre-canned reason. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't because I don't believe in, what do they say?
Yeah.
I don't believe in bribing dogs, and I don't believe
Yeah.
in like whatever. So
Yeah. Well, I would ask if it makes sense.
you're right, exactly right, because they'll tell you why. It just may not make sense. Because
yeah.
if we got to the heart of this, like very simply, very quickly, okay, I'm sure, or maybe not. Like maybe this is a dog trainer thing, but for owners out there who may or may not know, there's this really kind of two-sided approach to dog training right now. That's like, I never do corrections and I stay pure positive, and I'm very like science evidence based. Like you'll hear lots of these cues and read them in websites. And the inference there is people who correct dogs, it's unscientific, it's not based on anything, like they don't know what they're doing basically. Let me say this very simply. There absolutely is. And DTP, we personally are going to make sure that all of this information is available to you guys very soon in a super cool way. This is part of what we're so excited for season 3, okay? But there is, in fact, tons of evidence to suggest that properly utilized punishments for dogs for certain behaviors, it can work if you know what you're doing. Like obviously all kinds of things have to be taken into account. Duh.
Yeah.
But if the idea is like, well, it's not scientific, there's plenty of science to back this up. Plenty.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just make sure, sorry, to your point about like, I don't do this or I don't do that. If there's science to back up the value of reward and there's science to back up the value of a punishment, then it's hard for someone to argue why they do or don't do something when it does in fact work with dogs, right? In the real world. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, and I would just say really the ones I'm scared of the most are the people who say I don't use treats, I don't use food.
Right.
Right, those are the ones I'm really just trying to single out here. If you come to a dog trainer who says I don't use food, well, if you have a 4-month-old puppy, run, because they're not going to train that puppy in a fun way, and that's my 2 cents, right? Maybe I get some backlash on that, but be scared of the people who say I don't use correction. They can train a puppy. They can train a teenage dog. They may not be able to fix your prey drive. They may not be able to fix impulsivity. They may not be able to develop as much patience as possible, but they're going to be a lot better than that person who doesn't use food in their training.
100%. So I guess the only thing I would add to that one more time, sorry, is I like to look at dog training like I like to look at our technology stuff these days. It's just kind of easier if my phone is a Pixel and my computer uses Google and because it's integrated, right? When I'm training puppies, I hardly need to correct. I 100% agree. But the assumption, if you're a good trainer who makes good, connections with your clients, is like, well, let me train your puppy in puppy training with food and all that good stuff. But when they're older, I want to also be able to teach you XYZ, like in-house, one person. You already know me, you already know the staff, the dog's already comfy here, blah, blah, blah. So for that reason, even if your dog right now doesn't need any use for any sort of a correction, and may never, by the way, it's just, if you're going to get in with a trainer now and build a connection now, start with someone who knows how to scale with you as your dog goes through their life stages.
Good point. Very good point. And this involves a couple things. You need to meet the trainers, right? Like not only does a good green flag, right, is they want to meet you and they want to meet your dog before they give you any recommendations.
100%.
Right? Like there are so many stories where people just try to pitch a board and train and they've never met your dog. They just want to tell you, well, here's a package, sign up. Where can I get your credit card number? Right?
2 weeks, any dog, any age,
Yeah.
any
Yeah, and the reality of it is a mechanic has to see your car before he gives you a quote, right? A doctor needs to do a checkup on you before he gives you a diagnosis, right? So like the logic behind, I need to not, like for me, when I meet clients, I want to see how they handle their dog. I want to see what their relationship is like. I want to see the dog's temperament. I want to see what it takes for me to kind of bring, if the dog's shy of me, how to build a relationship. I want to see any insecurities in the owner, in their handling, and their body language, and the way that they communicate. Are there any weaknesses? And these are all things I'm seeing because my big picture as a dog trainer who does board and trains is how do I take over the training of this dog and how do I take over the training of this owner so that they can come together, right? And that's why I need to see both of them. So I'd be very precautious of signing up for something without, the trainer insisting that I meet you and your dog.
1,000%. And with you bringing up that good point of needing to take over the training of the dog and the owner, another huge green flag, this is something that you should absolutely look for, is dog trainers who, when they are doing a board and train program with your dog, how many times are you working with this trainer, either during and after the training program? There's lots of programs out there that will take your dog for, X many weeks and then do like one long follow-up lesson with you right at the end. It's like 2 hours, and then that's it. Versus programs that Brent and I do, we got this tip from a good friend, Michael Ellis. We do lessons with owners during the dog's stay with us, right? We'll do them like on a weekly basis or, or however often is necessary, because we get it, right? Owners have to be able to execute on the things that the dog's capable of doing, because I'm sure you guys can all imagine there's a dog that's capable of doing XYZ, but if the owner's a little clunky and doesn't know what's going on or doesn't know how to read the situation, like your dog's body language or other dogs, etc., then things can still go sideways, right? It's the whole weak link thing, right? So really look for programs that make it a point to emphasize learning not only on the part of the dog, but on the part of the owner, so that we can cohesively build a team out of the two of you.
100%. And I think being owner education forward is going to be one of the most important things. Like, we see this huge revolution happening in board and train. So if you guys are looking for board and trains, go to people who are human forward, in the sense of, I'm going to teach your dog, which is just 50% of the deal, and then I have to train the family, right? And when I say family, I mean the whole family, right? Like we'll give you some ideas of what we do. As he mentioned, we work with people during their board and train. So like while the dog is enrolled, every single week, these people have to come, not only visit their dog, but they have to work on their dogs in a semi-controlled environment, right? So if you have a lady who has a leash reactive dog, and that dog is lunging at dogs, and in their mind they are scared of handling their dog around other dogs. Well, guess what? In a semi-controlled environment, I can teach her how to heal that, how to fix that. If she comes every single week as her dog's training's getting stronger, I can build her handling skills to also get stronger. And I can put her around one dog at a time, 2 dogs at a time, 3 dogs at a time, 4 dogs at a time. And naturally, we start training both people, the dog and the human, right? And so it really, really serves as a really great stepping stone tool for a lot of owners to learn how to handle their dogs, learn the commands, learn the proper timing, learn how to work around distractions. And I require that before the dogs even go home. Now, once the owners have that found, I could stop there, right? I could stop there, but I said, I'm a human-centric. I understand that when you change the context from the training facility to the home, there's a lot of things at home that might try to get the dog to regress back to their old habits. And some of those variables are the habits of the family. So then what we do is we actually have post-training benefits. So post-training benefits mean you have private sessions at no additional charge for the rest of your dog's life. And I know some of you guys are listening right now and you're like, whoa, that's horrible business. Why would you give free private sessions away for the rest of your dog's life? Because those people who are super committed, I'm super committed to them. I'm super committed to helping them get better with their dogs. And at the end of the day, even if I have to give them 1, 2, 3, 4 free private sessions, guess what? That dog's happy, that family's happy. They're not going to take that dog to the shelter ever because they have a free lifetime of sessions. And then also, if 2 to 3 years from now, they think of a dog trainer to refer to their friend, they're probably referring me, right? And then also 2 to 3 years from now, when they stop training their dog and they regress a little bit, guess who they're coming back to? They're coming back to me because I've developed a community. I've developed a relationship with my clients, right? So, and then the other form of post-training benefits we have is a group class for all my graduates. So a graduate group class where people can come in, work on their dog issues with each other. We also develop a community that way. So this is all part of just my board and train program. But I think the big motivation here is my training is focused on how do we make humans better as well as the dogs, right? So just to give trainers and dog owners some ideas of what is possible, just wanted to kind of give you some of those examples.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's the ideal program, right? We do the same thing here at Untamed. A lot of it's just based on the brilliance of that very model that I learned from Brent. And it's the kind of thing that owners out there looking for programs, basically what we're saying here in a nutshell is look for a program that suits your dog, right, with whatever their life stage or set of goals or issues might be. Then start looking for red and green flags. Are these trainers excited to meet with me? Do we seem like the kind of people who are able to custom tailor this training style and approach for me and my dog? Or does it feel kind of cookie cutter?
Right.
And what can I reasonably expect in terms of follow-up? Like, look at it like you would look at anything else, right? If Ford was super confident with how they built my car, then why does it have a really bad warranty? Right? I get it. There's a limit. So I get all the reasonableness of the real world. However, does the trainer stand behind their work? That's the simple question right there, right?
Right.
Does the program sound like it fits me? Are there red and green flags I should consider? Do they stand behind their work? If you look at these things, we think you'll be okay. If you have specific questions, obviously reach out to your local trainers. Mm-hmm. Your local trainers will reach out to us, of course. So, so we're all kind of connected in that really cool way. That was the point of starting the podcast.
Yeah.
And we thank you guys so much for listening. Do me a favor and let us know what you think. These are kind of new for us in terms of format. We normally do longer content for trainers. Mm-hmm. So CEO in the title means for clients and owners. So do us a favor, you guys. Kind of let us know what you thought about it. Maybe there's some other issues or topics that you'd like us to discuss. This is for the owners out there. And we appreciate you. Thank you.
Cool. We'll see you guys next time in the next episode in Season 2, Episode 3. Talk to you then. Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers, for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
We really hope that you enjoyed this episode and can't wait to be back with you guys. Be sure to follow us at Dog Trainers Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And don't forget to punch the hell out of that subscribe button and leave us a review.
Remember, guys, this is your podcast. You're the best listeners in the world, and we'll see you next time.